back, everyone. This is the Changelog. We're a member-supported blog, podcast, and weekly email that covers what's fresh and what's new in open source. You can check out the blog at thechangelog.com, our past shows at 5by5.tv/changelog, and now you can subscribe to the Changelog weekly. It's our weekly email covering what's fresh and what's new in open source. We send them out every Saturday. Subscribe at thechangelog.com/weekly. This show is hosted by myself, Adam Stacoviak. I almost said Andrew Thorpe. And also Andrew Thorpe. Hey, say hello, man.
Hey, how's it going?
It's a good day, man. And this is episode 103, man.
It is a good day, yes.
It's good stuff. We're joined by Sytse Sijbrandij. Sijbrandij. Sorry about that, Sytse. He's the co-founder of GitLab with Dimitri. So they've got a fun thing going on over there. They just versioned to 6.0. So Sytse, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, no problem. Honored to be on the show. And Andrew, congratulations on your birthday, man.
Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah, you can virtually wish Andrew a happy birthday because today, Thursday, I think this will air on Friday, but you'll be in the future. But today's his birthday. Good stuff.
Big day.
And before we kick off the show, I want to pay some homage to our sponsor, DigitalOcean, super awesome cloud hosting server. So, cloud hosting provider. DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up a cloud server. Users can create a cloud server in 55 seconds, which is super quick. And pricing starts at $5 only for a half a gig of RAM, 20 gigs of SSD drive space, 1 CPU, and 1 terabyte of transfer, which is pretty awesome for $5. They feature 99%. Actually, it's 99.9% correction uptime SLA on their services. They have data centers here in the U.S., in New York, and San Francisco, as well as in Europe, not very far from Sytse, in Amsterdam. So, pretty neat. Their interface they have to manage it all is intuitive, it's super fast, and power users can actually replicate it on a larger scale because they have an awesome API to go with it. DigitalOcean uses KVM virtualization and additionally hosts a library of helpful walkthroughs and tutorials that cover server config and optimization, so it's pretty easy to get your services set up. We have a pretty awesome promo with them, $10 off. So when you sign up, you enter your credit card information on the billing page. There's a promo code field there. Go ahead and pop in our coupon code Changelog. That's not the Changelog, it's just Changelog, to use our $10 off promo. So thanks so much to DigitalOcean for their support. Go to digitalocean.com. And that's kind of neat, though, Andrew. We have a friend at Pure Trader that works with us that is about to move to their services. Kelly, his service Get Portly.
Yeah, Portly, yeah.
He's been using Linode, and I think one thing that was pretty enticing about DigitalOcean for him was the fact they have private IPs now. So he was like, "Oh, that's nice." And plus, it's on SSD, so it's super fast too. But
he likes Linode, but I think that he always kind of knew that it was good to get started with, and he was going to have to migrate eventually. So found DigitalOcean loves it. I think it's a pretty good move.
Oh yeah, DigitalOcean's one thing I've heard about is like it's just fast because it's SSD, but. Anyways, let's get this.
It's really neat. We use it to GitLab is hosted partly on another provider, but all the new servers are on DigitalOcean. We're really happy with them.
Is that right?
And it's,
nice.
Yeah, it's neat that they're sponsoring the show too, of course. But,
double sponsor.
Yeah, double
sponsor. Yeah, well, we don't get a discount, I guess, but it's amazing price and value anyway. So.
Oh yeah. And the $5, I mean, they're basic plans, so we get $10 off. It's basically 2 months free. The easy way to say that. I mean, that's a super extended promo for DigitalOcean, but we certainly appreciate the support of the show. But that's cool that you guys are using them too. But let's kick off the show. Andrew, you want to take the lead, my friend?
Yeah. So, Sytse, why don't you kind of go ahead and give us we mentioned it before, but we had a little sponsor. So you're with GitLab. So why don't you kind of give us a intro, just the history, or why don't you start with what GitLab is? Why don't we go there?
GitLab is a code and project management system. So you manage your Git repositories in there. There's an issue tracker. There's a wiki system. You can manage users and all kinds of permissions. And the whole goal is to collaborate as software developers, to do code reviews, to communicate stuff, to work together more efficiently, and to do continuous delivery of your software supported by this management in GitLab.
So obviously,
that makes
Go ahead.
No, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And obviously for anyone that's listening that is familiar with it, I'm sure you have to answer the question with how you guys relate to GitHub and other, those providers, Bitbucket and those guys. So we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. But so basically GitLab is just, do you only support Git or do you support other version control systems too?
No, we're Git only. Obviously, some people use it with SVN things, but there's no support in GitLab for that.
Gotcha. Why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of a history? I think you guys are starting to gain some real traction, but you've been around for quite a while. You're definitely not a brand new service, so there's some history behind you guys. So why don't you kind of give us a little peek into that?
Sure. GitLab was created in September 2011 by Dmitry Zarapovets and Valery Sizov. Dmitry continued with the project and is still the lead author, and he's a co-founder of me. A year after Dmitry made the project, I started GitLab.com to also offer commercial services around GitLab. But then GitLab was already out for a year, and it already gained some traction, mostly from people who want to run their own hosting service. So on premises within their company, or organization, they want to be in control of their own repos and access and backups, and GitLab enables them to do so. A big step in the development of GitLab, in my view, was version 5.0 when we got rid of all the dependencies on GitOlite, which is an awesome piece of software, but it allowed GitLab to scale a lot better and to support many thousands of users on one installation. And it's been open source the whole time. It's MIT licensed, and we got an awesome community around in contributing and helping people out.
I guess you mentioned being 5.0 is the last milestone. You said kind of a shift for you, but you recently celebrated 6.0. I think it was about like a week or two back, week and a half back.
Yep, it came out on the 22th of the month of previous month. Since 2011, it's always come out on that date, so you can expect a new major or minor release on the 22th of each month. So that's something the whole community is always looking forward to. 6.0 was also a major release. We added lots of awesome features. Most importantly, the ability to combine groups of people and groups of projects. So you can now have a group where you have a couple of developers in, and then if you add projects to that group, all the developers get their authorizations on the project automatically, and vice versa. And this makes managing bigger enterprise installations a lot easier. But also for smaller companies like 50 people or 20 people or 5 people, it's nice to be able to group projects and access. And of course, there were many, many other changes and improvements as well. But this was the biggest one in the 6.0 release.
So the Enterprise Edition is new in the 6.0 release, is that right?
Yes, we also introduced Enterprise version. The difference from the Community Edition is that it has support for LDAP groups. So normal GitLab can sync to your company LDAP server for permissions and authorizations. But this can also sync with your LDAP groups. So everyone who is in your company LDAP server can also gain access to a certain group in GitLab. It's more a feature for bigger organizations with more than 50 users. And this version is only available to subscribers of GitLab.com. So that's our business model. We make $2 a month for every user that is using an Enterprise Edition. So with that, we've become a sustainable company, and we were really glad it was positively received in the community, and we're trying to build on that to grow as a company and do even more improvements to GitLab.
The GitLab, though, sorry, Andrew, I wanted to make this point because the Enterprise Edition, though, is only available to subscribers of GitLab.com, though, right? So, like, you got the Community Edition, which you mentioned is open source, and GitLab EE, or Enterprise Edition, is subscriber-based. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So you announced 6.0 on August 22nd, and since then you've had a few weeks now. So you kind of said that the reception's been pretty good with the Enterprise Edition, but what does that mean? How has the reception been, specifically?
We got a major increase in the number of subscribers, people who wanted the new features, but also people who saw like we were really serious about it and that it's becoming a sustainable company. There were already lots of organizations using GitLab. Over 25,000 is our estimate. And now all kinds of organizations came to us and said, okay, we'd like the enterprise version, or we'd like the support. So we didn't have like multiple companies signing up every day before, and now we have that. And it was starting to gain major traction around the release. Some of the features in 6.0 were made in discussions with some major enterprises, and we now have like 3 Fortune 100 companies being paying customers of GitLab.com. So that was a major milestone for us, signing up these big companies and working with them to make GitLab even better.
You kind of alluded in a conversation we had that there was quite a bit of discussion that actually went around the licensing of the Enterprise Edition.
Yes, obviously, making 2 versions is a major step, and you can do it the wrong way or the right way. And obviously, what Oracle is doing to MySQL is not the way we wanted to do it. And we thought the best thing would be just to talk to our community about it, what our plans were and how we were going to do it. So on GitLab.org, about a month before the release, we said, okay, these are our plans and this is how we're going to do it. And then all the hard questions came about how you're going to license it. And that was a main point. And obviously we were thinking about a commercial license. All the extra code would be commercial code and you couldn't copy it, etc. And some of the people in the community said, well, why don't you just put your faith in the community and just make it open source? That's what we all believe in. And people are going to be okay. Like the GitLab community is pretty awesome and nobody's going to be mean and redistribute it. Why should they? If we're being a good member of the community, we can expect the rest of the community to be cool. So that was a pretty convincing argument. So we MIT licensed the Enterprise Edition, which I think is pretty unusual for enterprise software. You see it sometimes in smaller plugins and everything, but this is a bit of an experiment, and so far it's going really well, and very positive response to it. So I'm proud that together with the community we could do this, and you saw it when we released 6.0 that there was no, everybody was happy about it, how we approached it and the end result. So feeling really good about the discussion we had, especially with a user called Bean in the pre-announcement.
Let me ask a question here, because I was reading some of the comments on your 6.0 release and then the link out to your Enterprise Edition. And Andrew, this kind of keys off of something we asked Mike Parham when he was on about, Sidekick and Sidekick Pro, which is like, and the question that I'm going to ask is basically from one of the comments here is like, if the community develops your EE LDAP groups feature and they want to push that into the CE edition, I think you eventually had kind of a response too, but it was pretty much just it would be appreciated. So what is your official stance on, like, it seemed like there's some sort of divide there between the editions, even though you were graceful and offered it as MIT?
Yeah, obviously, that's a hard question to answer. So what happens if somebody contributes a feature to the community edition that is already in the enterprise edition? Would we merge that? I think the first question we're going to ask ourselves is, why do people want this? Because we promised that any features we put in only the enterprise edition would be features that would be mainly useful for larger organizations. And the fact that someone is contributing it to the community edition kind of indicates that maybe we're wrong. Maybe this feature is really useful for smaller organizations because we have pretty affordable pricing. So if you're in a large organization, you should have no trouble convincing the management of actually purchasing a subscription. So why is this happening? That will be the first question. And we might be mistaken. We might think about a feature that's only for large ones, but it's also good for smaller organizations. In that case, we're wrong, and we'll just merge that code or our enterprise code into the community edition. If that's not the case, I think it's what would be important is the seriousness. Some of these features are non-trivial to make. Is the code that is contributed, is that of a high quality? Did someone take it really serious to try to add this feature? Or is it just like, hey, I saw that this feature is missing and I tried to whip something up, but it's not that functional. So if someone is serious, that makes it more likely that we'll include it. Obviously, if the code was directly nicked from the enterprise edition, that would be legal, but that would not be very cool. So.
Yeah. Some of these, it seems like one of your interests is like that. I was just reading through is that, some features can be kind of bottled up into, because somebody suggested a plugin system and then kind of making it where, these enterprise features could be bottled up in plugins and just kind of added on like through some sort of subscription that you've already mentioned, but that some of them are just kind of bigger interfaces to the application, that it's just not easy to bottle up into a plugin.
Yeah, there might be, we have services, we call them, but they kind of function like plugins. So we might have some enterprise things that will be able to package as a service. That would be neat. I like what, for example, Vagrant is doing in this regard, where their VMware plugin is paid and the rest of Vagrant is open source. But some of these features, we would have to build a whole special interface into the community edition just to be able to build on top of that. And what we don't want to end up is with a worse community edition because we want to build on top. Like that shouldn't be the goal. So it's not always feasible to abstract something as a plugin. So we'll do it if it's easy, but we're not going to complicate the code base too much. With Git, it's very easy to just keep two separate versions in existence. So we'll rather do that than build all kinds of extra non-functional stuff that everyone has to maintain.
So speaking about the code base, and again, I want to kind of get into this a little bit, but I'm sure you answer this question a lot, or kind of have conversations about this a lot, but GitLab itself is hosted on GitHub. So why don't you kind of give a little bit of a insight into that decision and if that's going to be a long-term solution or if you eventually would move GitLab over to GitLab or, whatever you would say to that.
Yeah, we're trying to be really pragmatic about everything. So pragmatic that sometimes it hurts. So if it's about making something an awesome new feature that people can use, or building something just to serve our pride, then we built an awesome feature that people can use. So the thing is, we haven't gotten around to making public repositories. So on a GitLab server, everything is private. And for most people running a GitLab server, this is why they're running GitLab, because they want unlimited private repositories. So most of the people are really happy with that. And we're not against public repositories, so we're accepting merge requests for that. But it would be a big change. You have all kinds of problems, like you don't no longer have a current user, so lots of code needs to be adapted, and we want to do it in the right way so that all the security tests and everything, it doesn't become brittle. So we haven't gotten around to it. If somebody contributes it, really good code, we'll merge it. If there's a customer that really insists on it, we'll do it. But so far, everyone's really happy with the private stuff. But I think it's a question of time, because there are people right now building Fedora packages. There are people building Debian packages. There's discussion on the Drupal mailing list about using GitLab. So the pressure is on to start supporting public repos. So I think it's a question of time. But we're trying to be pragmatic about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, right now, just to kind of summarize and make sure I understand this correctly, right now, just because GitLab is itself open source, and maybe GitLab.com, the cloud, is not the best solution for an open source project right now because there are no public repositories. But eventually, if that happens, you would consider moving GitLab itself into GitLab to be hosted there?
Yeah, exactly. And we might have open public repositories even before we move. So we're just going to stay where the people are. And right now, GitHub is where the contributors are. So we're not going to force anything on anyone, right, just to be more proud. Our pride is in building something that people can use and that's stable and that's affordable and that's open and free, and that's our pride. And if we have to host somewhere else that's really fit for the purpose, then that's okay.
Yeah, and that's a really cool attitude, I think. You kind of speak about the pride thing, and I think that's something that in open source a lot of times kind of takes over, and some projects, not all. I mean, that thankfully not most, but there are some projects that seems like the maintainers of the project are very proud, and it's their way. It's what they want to do, not what the community wants. And that's kind of anti-open source. So it's really cool to see, that at a company level, you guys are all saying, it's not about our pride, it's about delivering what people want. And I think that's really cool. Have you kind of received any attention from GitHub itself, the company, or any of the team members about this?
No, we haven't.
I think that maybe it's a matter of time before you would hear something as you guys continue to grow. I mean, you guys are getting very big, over 10,000 stars on GitHub. So the scope of this project seems to be exploding, and it's real fun to watch it.
Yeah, I'm sure they are aware of us.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was just going to point out their URL. So while the listeners are listening, and maybe go hang out there. It's github.com/GitLabHQ.
Yeah, and there's lots of stuff. More, GitLab, a lot of you guys that contribute back to the open source community a lot in areas other than just on GitLab, and that's cool, right? So what other projects have you guys contributed back to the community besides just GitLab.com?
Besides the GitLab thing, the other main project is GitLab CI. So it's a very basic continuous integration server. I think the cool thing about it is that it's really user-friendly, so it's very easy to set up your projects. You don't have to set up new user accounts or new permissions. It communicates with GitLab over the API, and it gets your existing projects, and you can set up a new project in under a minute. And the other thing that's really cool about it is that it's distributed by nature. So your tests do not run on the CI server. They can run somewhere else. And this is the default setup. So what we commonly see with people, they set up a CI server, but the tests run on the server. So any project that runs on the server can access the whole CI server, and that's a bit of a security concern. And also maintenance and everything is complicated. And GitLab CI is distributed by nature. And I think that's really cool. If you want to know more, you should check out the architecture, GitLab CI architecture blog post.
Awesome. So GitLab Git is kind of to go back, I read an article from one of the founders of GitHub about Git and how, it kind of, I don't remember if it was Tom, but one of them was talking about how they just were in a bar one night, sat down, decided to start writing the Git bindings for Ruby. And so Git came about. You guys have written a wrapper around that called GitLab Git. And kind of, can you elaborate on what that is and why you decided to do that and how you chose to kind of use that architecture?
I think it's a pretty minimal wrapper. It's because the Git project is a bit, there are lots of pull requests waiting to be merged in the Git project, and I think that's why we have our own fork of the project. The thing that we built on that with a thing called GitLab Shell. Maybe that goes a bit too far now, but it's more of a fork with some additional fixes and things that we need than a replacement. So yeah, we're really grateful for the Git project that was contributed by GitHub. Yeah,
just to add some numbers to the mix here for those listening. I'm assuming this is the canonical repo, which is Tom Preston Warner's username on GitHub, which is Majumbo. That's Majumbo, right?
Yeah.
/grid, and there's 63 pull requests waiting to be merged. I think, without throwing stones, what do you think the reasons why there's so many pull requests waiting? Is it just that they're opinionated and maybe these pull requests don't really represent where they want to take Grid?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not. Yeah, you'd have to ask him.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a hard question to answer. The oldest pull request is from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So you would think that some kind of action would have happened on that pull request by now, but they got their reasons and why things are happening.
Yeah, not trying to throw stones, just trying to see, because you said one of the reasons why you did GitLab Git was that because of those being stacked up, and obviously you had some motivation and inertia of where you wanted to take it, so some vision for what Grid could be, so you had to essentially fork from where it was at and wrap around it and do some other things in addition to it. So it sounds like just you can't wait for other community members to move if you're trying to move ahead of they are, ahead of where they're at.
Yeah, and on the same time, we know how hard open source is, and keeping up with the issue tracker is really hard. And you cannot expect the same people who write software to always keep maintaining it and investigating everything. And our GitLab Grid is mostly for stuff we need. So we're not trying to be a better project or something like that. We're just trying to merge in stuff that we need.
Yeah, solve your own problems. And I think that's the point I was trying to make was like, is it, is it solving your own problems, or is it, I don't know, just easy question to answer.
Well, let's kind of move.
It's solving our own problems. And I think one thing infrastructure-wise that we did try to contribute that has some pretty unique functionality is GitLab Shell. It uses the GitLab API, so it's a bit specific, but it's code that allows you to host an SSH session and to have people download the code and clone the code and push the code. So basically what Gitolite is doing with Perl, this is doing with Ruby code in a nutshell. And I think that's a pretty neat piece of work, and it might be a good reference for other people trying to do this.
So Gitolite is what you guys were using, and that's what you said you replaced at GitLab 5.0, and that was with GitLab Shell. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, awesome. Well, you kind of talked about this a little bit. I wanted to maybe shift gears a little bit. One of the things that we've kind of hit on a little bit now is, I've said a little bit, quite a few in those sentences.
A little bit.
One of the things that we've talked about a small amount in the last couple minutes is building commercial company around open source.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned something about issue trackers and how they can be hard to kind of keep up with as one core maintainer. So at GitLab, you guys have a specific team of 2 people dedicated to the issues. Is that right? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there are 2 people, but they're not part of GitLab.com. They're part of the community. So I want to shout out to Ben Bodemiller and Robert Schilling. They're doing an awesome job on keeping the issue tracker as clean as possible. So trying to help people there, trying to close duplicate questions. And they're doing that in their spare time. And we really appreciate it. It's one of the most important things in open source. And we're really grateful if people step in to help out on the issue tracker.
And I think that comes from a mindset of, and you guys have it, which is when you're very open to the community and what the community desires, I think your specific community that comes up around you is open to giving back. And I think with Ben and Robert that are obviously committing, I mean, the one thing that you can't buy more of is time, right? You've heard that before. And so they're taking more of their time from whatever their regular jobs are to commit back to GitLab. And that's something that you get from a mindset of, being open to the community. And when you're truly open to what the community wants and willing to kind of shift in the direction that the community wants to take you, I think you kind of can, gain a lot of the joys of the community. Would you agree with that? Yeah,
but I think the community is doing a way better job than we are. Like, I'd like to hang out a lot more on the campfire rooms and everything to help the community. So we're not doing as good of a job as we could doing that. We had some help from Yves Sen, who is also working on the Rails core, and he helped us set up campfire rooms and help coach some people to become better contributors and better issue team maintainers. So yeah, we just have awesome people in the community. It's not because of us, but because of the community that it's going so well.
Yeah. So what's it like building a commercial? You said that you've recently become sustainable. Is that right?
Yeah, with the introduction of GitLab Enterprise Edition, we've become a sustainable company. And before that, we took on consulting assignments to make ends meet.
And you're going to be working full-time at the end of the month on GitLab, is that right?
Yes, I'm finishing up the last consulting work, and I can't wait to start working full-time.
I think it's an important point to camp out on I know we talked a little bit about some comments we heard back from those on the announcement of GitLab 6.0 and then also the Enterprise Edition, just like asking questions of why fork it or why have this divide or why have these separate options. And I think, maybe you can say this on your own, but I think generally speaking, to be sustainable, at some point you have to be able to sustain yourself through money and not do additional consulting and focus fully on GitLab. So that seems to be the answer to the question, which is that's why you've done it, to be sustainable.
Yeah, we've done it to be sustainable, and because we saw there was a lot of demand for features that only larger companies would use. And we had already for half a year, GitLab.com hired Dimitri as a co-founder to work on GitLab full time, and he's working all these awesome features. But yeah, the money has to come from somewhere, and we need to having a paid product is a great way to make ends meet. And I think it's there are also other things like donations. We did that as well, and we're really happy with all the people who donated. We also had a software as a service product, so for some people that might be the best way to generate income, but we thought this was the best way for GitLab.com.
Yeah, it's something we talk about a lot on the show because, unfortunately, if you get a pizza delivered to your house, you can't pay it with contributions, right? You have to have money to pay bills. So we talk about,
Well, let me respond to that. Dimitri called it ice cream money when he started, but we had some very, very generous contributions come in. We had companies donate $1,000, $600, like pretty big amounts. So it's not that the community is not willing to pay up.
Oh, when I say contributions, I meant like to to the code itself, like commits.
Oh yeah, sure. I was confusing it with donations.
Yeah, no. Well, that's the point. Is you can't pay your bills with code, right? You have to somehow make money, whether it's through donations or some sort of a business model or something. And so we talk about a lot on the show different business models that people have, and this is one. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just making this up, but I have nothing to back this. But it seems like this type of a business model where you have like your open source product and then you kind of extend it for like an enterprise edition or a paid version or something like that. This is kind of growing in popularity, and it seems that this model is growing in popularity specifically when your target, your target customer is a developer, right? Because I think developers understand that this stuff isn't free, that the people that are doing this still have lives, they have families and bills and all this and that. And so I think that it's a model that is lent to be successful because, myself, like, I'm more than willing to give money to a project that I rely on to get my job done because I know that this guy has to do his job, and the only way he can keep going is if he makes money, and if he can't keep going, then I don't have this project anymore to work with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. And what also comes into play is that many times the benefactor of the open source project is a company. And in a company, it's really normal to pay for software. It's not so normal to do a donation.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people who wanted to donate, it was much easier if we just said it was for software. But yeah, we can only do that if it really is for software.
Right.
So that's also why it's good to have a commercial offering.
So let me ask you this. So GitLab itself is open source, and you guys are kind of reaching out to companies to start using this. Have you gotten any flack from companies that maybe a little more old-fashioned that aren't comfortable with the fact that your software is open source?
No, we haven't, but maybe that's because we're not reaching out that much. I think the whole community around GitLab is doing the promotion, and just we have enthusiasts and champions within companies that started using GitLab, so it's a great fit for their organization, and that's they reach out to us. Maybe when we become more active in doing outbound sales that we get that reaction. But most people are really comfortable with open source. And yeah, people see, I think, the benefit of having more eyes on the product.
Right.
And maybe they like that there's a commercial company that has a lead developer that is like inspecting every last line of code that comes into the project. Maybe that helps, but
right.
We haven't had any negative reactions to GitLab being open source.
And it's, again, you have the community kind of, or the clients are coming to you. You mentioned to me that GitLab is actually looking to hire, and some of the roles you're looking to hire for are support and sales. So do you said this already, but you could see that happening a little bit if you're starting to reach out and do outbound sales. And what is your response to that if that starts to happen? If somebody says, I like what you guys are doing, I like that it's all private, but I don't like that the code itself is open source. Do you say they're not a good fit for you, or how would you handle that?
Oh, I would ask why they say that. Like, what is their concern? Are they concerned about security or about copyrights, or what is their concern about people inserting backdoors? And all these questions, I think, have different answers. Mm-hmm. And I think they all have a good answer. But it will be about the specific concern. Do you want me to go into the concerns?
No. I just wonder if you guys have put any thought into that as a company. And the only reason I bring it up is because you say you are looking to hire sales, which I think is unique. I think that companies that are open source with an enterprise edition don't often do much outbound selling. I think that's a unique thing that you guys are going to do. So I wonder if you guys have had those conversations at all. And, if those questions come up, or you hire a salesperson, are you going to want to train that salesperson on these questions and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think we'll see what we get for questions, and then we'll start answering them and making notes. I think the sales vacancy we have at the moment is going to be inbound. So just keeping up with all the requests that are coming in and making sure people have all the information and following up on all the questions they asked and all the wishes they have. Mm-hmm. So we're hiring for that, and we're hiring for support, making sure that you help people with their environment, setting everything up, making sure the backups are okay, and doing high availability configurations. So right now we're hiring for that. And outbound sales, that's still in the future. We just have trouble keeping up with the growth we're currently having. So although I'd like to do even more sales, let's first, we're still doing a great job at servicing our customers, but we need to hire in the very near future. So if you're interested, please let us know, because we need you to grow further and keep doing a good job.
So on that note, then, what are some of the biggest challenges you face then? I mean, so is it manpower? Is it we just talked about you becoming sustainable with the enterprise edition. What is the biggest challenge you face right now?
Yeah, good people are always the challenge. And I think we've been able to hire some amazing people because they like being in open source. But for example, getting a person that wants to do inbound sales and is enthusiastic about that are not the people who come into contact with open source projects. So I think that maybe we should do some more marketing and PR in non-developer channels.
Some outbound sales to get some inbound salespeople.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's a very positive problem to have. So that's okay. And so far no major problems, just keeping up with all the extra demand after we announced the enterprise edition. That's right now the focus for the next few weeks.
Yeah. So you can look at GitLab's jobs at gitlab.com/jobs. Let's shift from where we're at now with GitLab to what we can expect coming up. I know that you said that you guys don't have like a big roadmap, so we'll talk about that in a second, but specifically for 6.1, what is going to come out with this release?
We have 3 big features coming out. The first thing is issue referencing. So when you commit in Git, you can write a commit message. And you can say something like fixes number 27, which means fixes my issue number 27. And all these kind of comments and links are all detected by GitLab, and the appropriate comments are closed. And we normally work with feature branches, which means that if you're going to solve a ticket, you're going to make a new feature branch for it. And then when you accept this feature branch, there's a big, nice green button that says accept. And then right on top of there, it will say, well, this will fix issue this and this and that. And it got that from the commit message you did earlier. Fancy stuff like that is now possible. The other thing that was a popular demand were, we call them pseudo API calls, which means that as an administrator, you can do API calls, and you can do them as another user. So, for example, if you need to comment or move someone's project, you can do it as that user, so that you don't have any weird users showing up in the history of stuff. And the third major thing is project-specific IDs. Like now, if you open an issue for a project, it gets a global ID. So suppose you have on your entire GitLab installation, you have 100 issues, it gets number 101. While on the project, you just had 10 issues. So it's not really logical that it's then number 101 when you have only 10 issues.
Oh, gotcha.
So we're gonna fix that and make sure you have project-specific IDs and merge request IDs.
So every project starts at issue 1.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Awesome. So that's coming out for 6.1. I think it's interesting that you guys have no, and you kept, when we talked, you kept talking about we have no roadmap, we have no big, audacious goal or no big, private plan of where we're going. So that kind of means that your site and your vision is very close to what you're working on right now. Why don't you talk about like that? I don't know if that was a decision or if you guys just naturally kind of, organically grew into that, but why don't you guys have some big roadmap? Why don't you have a long-term plan?
We used to have this roadmap file in the repo, but it wasn't maintained any longer, so we deprecated it, and we found that normally when a release is almost done, so most of the time it's a few days before the 22nd, Dimitri kind of knows what he wants to work on. The community knows what they want to work on. But you just figure it out then, right there and then. So you're done, the stress is gone, and you think, oh, I'd like to work on this or that. Or I heard so many people complain about this or that. And these things, you cannot predict them 2 weeks or a month in advance. Sometimes you can, but sometimes you can't. And we want to be working on the things that inspire us and that are important to the community and to the clients of GitLab.com. So why work on something less important just because you said so a month ago? So we don't want to end up in that situation. And I think David Heinemeier Hansen said it very eloquently when he said, inspiration is perishable. If you're inspired by something, just go work on that. And we try to keep that alive.
That's true, because, I mean, you hit that moment whenever especially as ingrained in the communities you're trying to be, considering, you're so grassroots in your efforts that, you can't operate off of a roadmap if the inspiration comes from, like this conversation we're having today. Like, you might be inspired by something we suggest or the part of the conversation that reminds you of something. You're not going to want to wait 2 months to go and work on that. You're going to want to take care of it like at that moment, because it'll perish.
Exactly. And if it's important, it will come back. And last but not least, many, many new awesome features, such as the pseudo API calls, they're contributed by people. So we couldn't have predicted that. That comes up, and at a certain point they're ready, and we can merge them, and then they're in the next release. So it's useless to try to predict the community. We just have to go with their flow.
Yeah, I think that this is something that I think about a lot. Working as a developer full time, it's incredibly, I don't know if the right word, but stressful to think about like long term. Like, in 6 months we're gonna want to do this feature. And to me, when we start, and Adam knows, like I think he could probably laugh, because he actually, when he starts talking about features that are like more than today's work, he says, Andrew's going to kill me for bringing this up. But it's funny, because I think as developers we do like to be inspired and work on what is current and what is currently important, right? So it's like I want to know what I'm working on right now, so I can, my thoughts and my brain cycles are not unlimited, and I want to be able to devote it to what's important. And when I have to spend a ton of time thinking about, does this match the roadmap? Does this match the 6-month plan? That's just overwhelming, right? It's stressful, and I don't think it really – how often do companies actually stick to their roadmap, And so when you have the open source community that's very active with your project, I feel like a roadmap would lock you into something that maybe wouldn't be the best idea,
All the energy you spend on the roadmap, it's wasted. So you'd have, before feature branches, you'd have people at companies who are called release managers. Like most companies still have them. If you do a software as a service product, you don't need a release manager. You can do continuous delivery, and you can just deliver the features as they are completed. There's no need to do a release. There's no need for Git flow. Please use feature branches and just release what's ready. And the release manager can do something else and be productive, and no one has to stress out or fight about which features get in which release, which is not adding anything. So I feel really strongly about this, as you maybe notice, and I'm really glad we're able to practice what we preach.
What were you going to say, Adam?
I was just going to say on the idea of roadmaps, something that I heard from somebody pretty respected, actually from 37 Signals. A while back, I had Ryan Singer on a different show I hosted for a while called the Industry Radio Show. And, it clicked when he'd mentioned this idea, because he's a product manager at 37 Signals. So he tries to know where they might want to go, but he doesn't let that impact how he works today. And I kind of lament on how he said it and its trajectory, like knowing where you want to end up potentially, but being able to kind of deviate along the path along the way based on this perishable resource called inspiration or, feedback from the community or whatever, but you kind of have an idea where you want to go. It's not exactly a roadmap. It's like an idea of where you might want to be. I kind of think of it like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, if GitLab, for instance, like GitLab's not going to switch from doing, like version control hosting to, playing music, right?
Right.
Like there's no roadmap. They know in a year, there's some things that they know, right? They still want to be a company, so that's a given. They want to still be doing Git, and but what they don't know is, what if the community comes up and starts saying like, we really, really want support for X, whatever that feature is. Well, that feature could be a huge thing, a small thing, whatever. But as long as they have the mindset that they're being flexible and they're willing to, go in that direction, then that could drastically change the roadmap, right? So if there was a roadmap, it could be altered greatly if you have a flexible mindset. And I think that's what's scary, is if you are roadmap driven and you're not willing to move drastically away from that roadmap. I guess there is two extremes, right? You could be kind of chasing every little rabbit trail of every little potential feature, but when you think of it that way, those rabbit trails tend to be bigger features.
Yeah.
You have your core product, and your core product, it doesn't change that much. It can change in the feature set, but as long as you're not chasing down, core rabbit trails where your core changes drastically, I don't think you want that roadmap. I don't think you want to know where you want to be at, maybe where you would like to be at business-wise, but to sit down and say, I think that we all can understand and all can admit that if you try and sit down and talk about features and where you want your feature set to be in 12 months, that you're not going to accurately estimate or predict what's going to happen.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Was you're not going to accurately depict the future like that. It's going to be a rough estimate. And totally with you on that one for sure. Yeah.
And I think that the problem is a lot of companies invest a lot of time trying to figure out how they can accurately predict 12 months down the road. And it's like,
why?
the sooner that you can embrace the fact that you can't predict 12 months down the road, the more that you can realize that you're wasting time and money on trying, and you can invest that time and money into what's happening right now. And that's important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And great quote of Ryan as a product manager. I think what you're trying to do, if you're making a roadmap, you're drawing roads on a piece of paper that doesn't have a map. It doesn't list the terrain you're in.
Yeah.
So you're drawing this path you will take, but you're not taking into account the terrain, because the terrain, like, it's hard to see how much effort stuff will be, or what's important, or what's the weather gonna be. So you don't want to draw exactly which path you'll take. You need a direction. Like, we're going northeast because that's our goal. And then you'll figure out how to get there and which streams to cross and which route to take along the way. And you know your direction. And we also know our direction. We want to polish GitLab CI a bit more, because right now it's a bit rough around the edges. We want to package GitLab better, because right now you have to install it by hand. We have a really good installation manual, but still, if we make it easier to install, then more people would install it, which would be awesome. So these are things okay, this is the direction we want to go, but we'll see how we get there.
Right.
And what tomorrow brings, and we'll just look around and see which is what pull requests are coming in from people.
Gotcha. So what's on the roadmap for GitLab?
Nice one.
It's cool. No, I think that's it's almost like you could do a whole nother not even just talk, a whole nother show about, I don't know if procedure is the right word, but what's the solution, right? I mean, you kind of talked about knowing the direction you want to head. Well, how do you know the direction you want to head? How can you accurately talk about a direction without talking about goals? And I think that there's something there, and whoever can figure it out and bottle it up, I think you'll become, a bajillionaire on figuring that out, because there's obviously been companies that have been, that's what release managers do. That's what these people do. And so there've been companies that have been investing tons of money and time into trying to be able to figure this out. And I think if you can figure it out and figure out not just, it's not just figure out what I want to do in 12 months, but it's figure out how can I get us going in a direction and maintain the mindset that we're going to be flexible. But at the same time, I don't want to jump ship on this value because it hasn't panned out in the first 2 weeks. So I need to give it its due diligence, right? So if you can figure all that out, then, more power to you, and bottle it up and sell it, and then hire me at your company to just collect a paycheck.
Yeah, it's really good. Product managers are really, really valuable. Yeah. I think at GitLab we just talk within the company, but also with the community, and we just see where we're going, and we're driven by Dimitri's dream to give awesome tools to developers.
Yeah.
And I think the mission is a bit expanding into just collaboration in general. I think Git is an awesome tool to collaborate and to be flexible. Like, people used to send an email with an attachment, and then you edit something and you send it back, and they send it to 3 other people, and now they have a problem. And these things are going away, and version management is going to solve it. But it's really hard to do it in a user-friendly way, and there's a whole wide open space about working together on code, but also on technical documents, legal documents, and eventually everything that's digital will be version controlled. And people are starting to figure that out, but I think it will be as important as web servers, these collaboration servers. And I think there should be a really good free one that everyone can use in freedom, and that's how I see GitLab. But Dimitri might say something else, and we have to figure that out as we go along, and listen to our users and to the people in the community.
Yeah. So it's been 2 years, and you guys are at 6.0. Would you say that you put out another major release? You bump the version in a major number every 4 months or so. Has that proven to be pretty accurate?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Cool. So we can expect to see 7.0 coming out in the next 3 months or so. That's exciting.
Christmas.
Yeah, it'd be Christmas present, huh?
Well, that would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think that we could. There's plenty more we could talk about, but we do try and keep the show under an hour or to an hour. I think we're about reaching that point now. We ask our guests the same questions at the end of every show, and so I'll go ahead and ask you now, Sytse. I didn't prep you with these, so don't kill me for putting you on the spot with these. But our first question is, and I'm drawing a blank right now on what the question is.
Call to arms.
Call to arms, yeah. So first question, for the community, you guys obviously have a very active community, so I'm not sure that, there's anything specific, but what would be something that you would like to see the community kind of rally around and work on? Or even better way to put it is there a specific feature that you think is missing from GitLab that you would like to see somebody kind of get involved with?
Well, if I'd have to do a call to arms, I would say help people out using GitLab. So there are IRC channels, there's an issue tracker, there's a mailing list, and people are asking loads of questions, trying to figure out a problem, trying to see how they have to configure something. If you want to help GitLab, please help out these people. It needs to be the community is doing an awesome job helping these people, but there is a lot of room for further improvements. There's room for better answers, and just pick your favorite medium. If it's Stack Overflow or an IRC channel, but help out these people with GitLab questions. That will be my call to arms. And of course, if you need an awesome feature yourself, please make it and contribute it. But there's no need to go around looking for something to make something you want. Don't make something somebody else wants. That's the most important thing. So you're inspired to do a good job, and you know what you want.
That's good advice. Yeah. What about so if you weren't doing what you're doing now, and I asked that question, let's say assuming it's a month from now and you're working on GitLab full time, and if you weren't doing that, what would you like to be doing instead?
I would like to learn JavaScript and play with Node. I listened to your episode with Isaac, the RPM NPM maintainer. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'd like to know more about that and play with it. I'm a Ruby developer. I love Ruby, but it would be good to learn a second language in a good way. So I do that.
Awesome. And our last question is a programming hero or somebody that you have been influenced by greatly in your life that you would like to give a shout out to.
I want to shout out to Yehuda Katz. He's core on MERP, Rails, jQuery, Ember, making a Skylight application, but also making a Tokaido application, and that is to help people install Ruby on Rails easily on their Macs. It's just amazing how much he has given to open source. I don't believe he's actually one person. There must be 3 more in a basement somewhere.
Many Yehudas.
But yeah, many Yehudas. It's just amazing what he has done, and I greatly respect that. And we cannot stand even near him compared to our contributions. I think it's really awesome that there are people like him, and he's a great inspiration to me personally.
I'm always inspired by some of his tweets where he's like, "Hey, I'm hacking on this. Anybody got anybody that knows something about this?" Like, he's still humble, even though, like as you said, you don't deserve to stand next to him compared to contributions. I think he's a pretty humble person. And speaking of Yehuda as your hero, Andrew, are we still in talks about getting him on to talk about the latest Ember release and whatnot, like a couple weeks?
Yeah, we're still trying to work it out, but hopefully, hopefully in the next few weeks we'll be talking with him about Ember, and it'll be a good one.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well,
yeah,
we definitely appreciate you coming on the show. Sytse, I mean, the work you guys are doing.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the work you guys are doing is really inspiring. Definitely the way you're leading the community and listening to the needs of the community is super inspiring. So appreciate you coming on the show. Want to give another shout out to our sponsor, DigitalOcean. Definitely cool that you guys actually use them, for one, and two, that they're sponsoring the show, because it helps us sustain. So I mean, that's what helps us make sure that Andrew and I can show up here every week and talk to people like Sytse about what they're working on, and give shout outs to people like Yehuda and others on the work they're doing. So you can go to DigitalOcean.com and plug in our coupon code changelog to get $10 off your subscription. So do that whenever you feel like. But to the listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. That's a kind of a neat show. We'll put something in the email. So if you're not subscribing to the Changelog Weekly, you've got to go to thechangelog.com/weekly. It's where we're putting our updates, as well as tons and tons of other stuff that hits our radar that we don't always have time to hit up on the blog. So definitely a huge Saturday read, and that's pretty much it. So let's say goodbye, guys.
Thanks so much again, man.
Goodbye. Thanks for having me. Awesome that you're doing this show on open source. Great work.
Thank you. We'll see you everyone next week. Later.
Later.
Later.